You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. What is happening, everybody? Welcome and happy Wednesday. We got a great show for you today. We got an eclectic show for you today, and we also happen to be having a special guest on, the Eclectic Journalist. I'm going to bring her on and introduce Megan, or really I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment, but I want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. I saw a bunch of all of our great people out there and some new ones as well. We got Ashlyn Cherry, Lace, we got RLW311, we got Jason TG Sponsor, we got Lace, both of which, and we got Jeff Johnson over there, our moderators. Folks, our moderators, you guys are great. I love you guys. Thank you for all that you do. I really do appreciate you guys coming in here. I know the pay makes it worth it as well, but no, I really do appreciate you guys. We just had a members only chat, and I'm going to start trying to make those more regular. Maybe every Wednesday, an hour before, I think is probably what we're going to start to do. And it's a great time just to talk through some things, bounce some things off you guys. I enjoy it. Hopefully you guys do as well. And it gives you guys something back for supporting the channel. Somebody I just saw over there, I don't know who it was talking about, maybe it was Ashlyn Cherry. I don't know where the comment went, was talking about starting a podcast. Look, if you are thinking about starting a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever it is, do it. And if you need help, I'll help you. I will get you so much further. Like, I had to learn everything on my own. I learned audio, video. I knew nothing about any of that stuff. I don't know half the stuff now. I'm still figuring things out, but I will get you so much further. If that's something you want to do, I'd be happy to help you with those things. Now, I can't do, if suddenly I get an inbox full of 100 people, maybe we'll just start doing a live stream and I'll walk you guys through some things that will help you. But the point here is you got to get out there, and not only do you can't be afraid to fail, just know that you're going to fail. Like, it's going to suck. It's going to suck right off the bat. Who cares? And, one of the things that I got into when I first started, I decided that I was going to start doing YouTube and start posting regularly. I got into this thing where I'd make this video and I'd start editing it, and then I'd be like, oh, this is trash. And I would just dump it, right? Waste it all the time. Usually, especially when you get started, like a 20-minute video takes you all day, sometimes multiple days. And I realized this cycle that I was getting into, and it was a fear of failure. And I just said, you know what? Forget that. What we're going to do is I'm going to shoot 100 videos. I'm going to post 100 videos. I'm going to post them no matter what. And that's what you got to do. And I'll tell you, the funny thing is, I still marvel at this, is most of the videos that I think are going to be the worst is do the best. Like, it's so strange to me. Like, there are videos that I've spent weeks and weeks on and worked on the production and in the audio and B-roll and all this other stuff. And then, those don't get near the views. This trashy video that I almost throw away, I was like, oh, this, I'll just post it. No one's going to like it. And man, it freaking does great. It's so weird. So I don't know if anyone's figured out the formula for all that. I guess probably the only person I know that probably has is Mr. Beast, maybe a few others. But the point here is, if you want to do that, go out and do it. And just know that you're going to fail at first. And it's okay. It's okay. Luckily, you're only going to have 10 people watching you. But guess what? As you continue to get better at it and you reach more people, it's going to grow. The key here is to not quit. The key is to not quit. I think the average podcast that people start a podcast, they do on average like 3 episodes. So the key is to continue to create content, regardless if you think it's going to be successful or not, and you're going to get better. Like, you don't become Joe Rogan overnight. It's just not how any of this stuff works, or Mr. Beast, or any of these other things. All right. I am having a great day. I actually had a really great day. Thanks, James. And I hope everybody else is out there having a great day as well. James is with the CIA. Hopefully that's not, I would rather the Central Intelligence Agency watching this than anybody from the Candace Intelligence Agency, which is that's paradoxical to begin with. But anyways, I had a great day. I got to go work out a little bit. I built some guns, and then went and worked out and ate lunch with my 16-year-old. It's been a great day, and we also got a great guest. I'm going to bring her on, and then we're going to start talking about a couple of other things I want to cover before we get to the Iran war. But without further ado, I want to bring on Megan, the Eclectic Journalist. Megan, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you.
Hi, it's nice being here.
If
I
you
want
will,
to.
just take a moment and just introduce yourself to everybody. Tell everybody where to find you. And folks, I got all of her social media links down in the description below, so go check that out.
Okay, so my name's Megan. I have a channel called The Eclectic Journalist. It's called journalist because I was actually writing things and looking into stuff at the time that I created the name. So I'm not really for sure if I am technically a journalist, but I want to be maybe someday. So might as well start with the name. But I have a wide variety of topics that I'm interested in and that I talk about, which is where the eclectic part comes from. So you'll pretty much just find all kinds of things on my channel that are just what I find really interesting or pertinent things to be thinking about in the moment. And I use a lot of historical analysis to go over what we're seeing today through an historical lens. So that's what I do. I'm very small. I just launched on January 1st. And I want to say, too, at the start of this show, and I'm sure many people in your audience feel this way as well. I actually found you the day after Charlie was assassinated because my friend turned me on to you. And in those days, in the very beginning days, your show and Jose, the body language guy, his
Yeah.
show, who I was already watching him, but occasionally I would, catch his show. He was one of my routine people. But you and him helped me get through those very first days, which were incredibly sad. And so I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and come to find out, I didn't even know who Jesus was at the time. And somebody, I don't know, like 3 or 4 different times before I even knew who he was, people sent me links to his videos where he was featuring my videos, which was really cool. And since then, I've actually talked to him a bunch on, I think Signal or WhatsApp. I'm not sure. But anyways, love that guy. I mean, just full of common sense and just one of the best communicators on the face of the planet. That's the other, that's what I'm always, look, I realize, especially when we're live, I'm good at articulating things on a produce. Like I know exactly how I want to say it, the words that I want to use. But sometimes, especially when I'm live, I sit here and I know how I want to say it, but sometimes and the other thing too, I'm getting older, I guess. Maybe I've just been blown up too many times. I forget words all the time. And
Yeah,
anyways, I really
words for me are the worst. Like I can't remember when I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head, certain words that I should know. And I'm really bad with names of things, remembering the names of things.
well, the
So,
thing with Jesus, if you watch him, not only is he entertaining, extremely intelligent, communicates wonderfully. Like there's never an or an or there's no filler words in any of that. Chase Hughes is another one of those guys that can do that extremely well. I'm not there yet. Maybe I'll never get there, but I love. There's something magical about communication and when it's done at a master level. And Jesus is one of those guys. We'll get there. Maybe you and I will get there one of these days, Megan. Look, one of the things I want to jump into before we start dipping our toe into the Iran war, and I'm probably going to bring up one of Megan's videos to do that. She just released it. I haven't even watched it yet at all. I just know of it. She basically did from the very beginning to the very end. I don't know. You describe it. Your
well,
recent.
it's not my recent. It's the first one I made the night that this broke out. And I
Hmm.
went back in history, and you could just play the very beginning part
Okay.
of it where I go over the narrative, and it's got beautiful pictures of Iran in it. And I go over the narrative from 1908 basically up until 1979 with the revolution.
Awesome. No, we'll
So,
definitely hit on that.
and then
Uh,
the rest are kind of like my immediate weird thoughts, and then just looking at stuff on X.
what Megan does really well, and once I found her content, I mean, she just provides some extremely information dense videos and again communicates all of these somewhat complex principles and elements very effectively. So I highly suggest that you go watch one of the videos I did watch of hers from front to end a couple of times was her video on the Monroe Doctrine. And I thought I understood the Monroe Doctrine. And I did kind of broadly, but she gets into some of and the reason that is relevant is because we see a lot of crossover from the Monroe Doctrine to what's now termed the Donroe Doctrine. And that was extremely relevant, especially when we had the military operations taking place in Venezuela. But I want us, and I almost didn't play this. All right, we're gonna revisit Candace for just a moment because this one's important, and then I want to share with you guys another piece of video that's completely outside of what we're talking about Iran or anything else, but I also think it was important. So, anyways, real quick, I want to throw this up there, and I just wanted to point this out of what an absolute liar that Candace Owens is. And you see this in real time. So what I was doing, we were looking at different videos from Charlie Kirk when Iran struck, or when the United States struck Iran last June. And I wanted to see kind of the juxtaposition that we had with what Candace was saying versus what Charlie was saying. And man, are there some doozies. But this one stood out to me, especially if you're not following me on X or Megan on X, make sure you guys fix that. But this is worth playing to show just how dishonest that she actually is. And I will back this up and play this for you.
But she said, if Trump said we're going to like get involved, you should, and you're in the military, you should dishonorably discharge if you're in the military. That's like you go to jail for that. It ruins your life. It's the most insane, and they just say idiotic things like this and move along. Like it literally is like go commit a crime. Like,
so let's just unpack all of that. So like I said, to be
right. So I want you to look at the date here, June 23rd, episode 204. Oh God, what's his name? Barstool Sports. Anyways, he was basically saying, look, she is telling people to go out and to go AWOL and to completely dishonor their oath of service and to completely ignore lawful orders. All right. That is being a traitor as close as you can get. I don't know what else to say.
That'll
now,
get court-martialed. I mean,
well, she said specifically, you should get dishonorably discharged. All right, that is, it's unbelievable to hear her say that. Now she's responding to it, and she starts this off by saying, if you are a Zionist, you have to just completely lie right off the bat. That's what you have to do. You have to lie and make things up. And let's hear what she actually said in just a moment.
Radical Zionists, you just have to lie and feel nothing when you do it. So during a Q&A section of our show last week, somebody asked the question, like, I'm in the military. Should I even fight? Like, should I just come home? And I said, look, if I was in the military, and I'll say it again,
Here's what she said. She said, I said that if I was in the military, this is what I would do. Well, the internet's forever. And we're going to go back just a couple of episodes backwards and see what she is saying now versus what she actually said.
I'm not going to die for Israel. LG19 writes, serious question, will there be jobs or community military members can join when I get a dishonorable discharge for not contributing to delete people or my body for the interests of a certain foreign nation benefit? I love this question. I do believe that if war in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so, get dishonorably discharged. Who cares? Who cares?
you go to jail for that. It ruins your life.
Who cares? Who cares?
And the crazy thing beyond this, I mean, that's sedition. I mean, textbook. All right. There's a federal law that covers this exact thing, and she meets every definition of it. Now, it's up to the federal government, and this is over a year ago, or about 9 months ago. So that's where we're at with this. But I also want to point out that she goes on to tell this guy, oh, you can just get into the security world. Just start a security firm. She doesn't even understand what she's talking about. She doesn't understand that if you get a dishonorable discharge, that is worse than most felonies. You can't own a gun. All right. You're not going to ever pass a background check. She is telling people to commit a crime and then to ruin their entire lives. I mean, who cares? Who cares? But it's a blatant lie. She completely changed what she was saying to try to defend against this, and then said Dave Portnoy was the one that was actually lying. These Zionists just lie with no regard, and it's clearly untrue. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Megan, but
No one is safe from this woman, not even Dave Portnoy from
no,
Barstool Sports.
it's crazy.
When she was saying "who cares," it sort of reminded me of Hillary Clinton going, "What does it even matter?"
Yeah.
Um,
Who cares?
so she is so ridiculous, the things that she says, and she says it with such confidence because she's a con man or woman. But basically, the con part in con man is confidence.
Yep.
It's a confidence man. So they can
Yeah.
say
And,
things to you with such confidence that you believe what they're saying.
and these are things I've pointed this out so many times. Just recently, the most recent example is how she goes through one of her recent episodes talking about how the bomb dogs allegedly missed the firearm. We don't even know if that story is true. The departments that she referenced, come to find out, people have looked into it. They don't even have working dogs in either of the departments that she referenced. So I think the entire story is made up.
Yeah,
But regardless,
I never saw I don't know where she got that from. I never saw anything about that.
it,
So,
it came from her tip line. That's what she said. Somebody gave us a tip.
oh,
So that's where that came from. But she goes on a diatribe of 10 minutes convincing you that bomb dogs, there's no way they can miss a firearm. And then, I knew this from the beginning, but then I found a YouTube video, a guy talking about that who specializes in training canines, and is like, hey, bomb dogs and gun dogs are completely separate things. There's a huge difference. You can train bomb dogs, but you have to train them specifically to find guns. But she says it with such confidence that, and I know most people don't even know this, so she's going to trick millions of people. Number one, we don't even know the story is true. And then she's talking about gun dogs as if she's some sort of, canine trainer. It's nuts to me, but that's where we're at with everything, with all of this. All right. Now we're going to wash our palates for a moment. We're going to talk about something a little bit different. And I highly recommend that you guys go watch this entire podcast. This is Joe Rogan, and he has a guest on with Rachel Wilson. I had never heard of Rachel Wilson. I still don't know who she is, but this was one I almost skipped over. I highly recommend that you go watch this. We're going to watch just a couple minutes of it and talk about it before we get into a run. And I think you guys will find this very interesting.
That you're trying to sort out what's true. You're trying to figure.
All right, just real quick. She talks about the fact that her parents, her dad is extremely conservative growing up, and her mother was like crazy left-wing liberal. And they never got along, but it gave her some sort of perspective between the two. And they end up getting divorced, of course. But this is what she's talking about.
Out, like, is there any merit to what mom's saying the world is, or any merit to what dad's saying the world is? And I think dad was more persuasive and better at pulling me his direction, because I never really absorbed, like, I always thought Marxism was, faking gay and stupid. I just never bought into it at all.
Why at an early age did you think that?
Because I already had seen that, we're not all born equal with equal things. And some people work much harder. Some people have natural gifts and talents. And to think that, because my mother would literally say stuff in the house, like from each person according to their ability to each person according to their need. And I was like, even when I do that in class, like if there's a group project, everybody wants me on their team because I'm the smart kid who's going to do the homework. I end up doing everything and everybody else gets the A, even though I did everything. So
and
I was
those
like,
are the people that are really into socialism.
Yes.
The people that half-ass stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
And so like from
I mean, isn't that true? I mean, that's really, and this, we talked a little bit about this in our members only a little bit. I mean, those are the people that push socialism, that don't want to contribute to anything, that think just because you're more talented and you work harder, they don't see that, but they see that you're getting things that they don't. And just like she said, the other issue that we have here is people are born with different talents, and some people find those talents and they develop those talents and they work hard and they're rewarded. And that's how the world just works. Like, there should be some sort of law. Maybe there is, but you work hard outside of like some horrific bad luck, you are going to see results. And this goes back to those of you that want to start a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever else. Like, it's work. This is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And then you expose yourself to the public and everything else. But the point here is, that's where we're living in a society where we've created this cycle where we as the conservatives, those people out there working hard, Republicans, we are paying for all the taxes. We have all we're focused on is our family and building our businesses, or doing great at our job, paying the bills to make sure that we get taxes that pay for people to live comfortably that don't work. That's what's going on. And there's this vicious cycle. And then we have politicians that exploit that and basically pay them to do nothing so that they'll continue to vote for them so they can continue to take our money. But let's continue to watch more of this, because she makes some other great points.
Being a little kid, I even noticed, like, no, things aren't equal and things aren't always fair. And it depends on, your natural skills and abilities, and then what you do with those things. Because there's lots of people, like my mother was super talented, really intelligent person, but she was so like emotionally chaotic. She never applied them to anything. She never really got anywhere or did anything. She had big dreams of what she thought she should have and never really got there because she was so like emotionally unregulated and kind of chaotic. So I just kind of saw that, no, there's not this like thing where you can just even the playing field and make it all equal for everyone. That's not how it works.
There's also a thing that if you're locked up in something like Marxism, you if that's your ideology, you're in this constant struggle with the rest of the world all the time,
Yes.
where you want to bend it to your ideology. You want
Yes.
to change it. And so even if you're a very intelligent person, your daily mindset is struggle. Your daily mindset is conflict and existential crisis. Like, people,
that is exactly, that was the picture that was laid in front of me.
Yeah, it's such a
I go
trap.
to Dad's house and he's like, he started a business after the divorce and he's like hustling. He's working 12 to 14-hour days. He's doing everything he can to make it work. He's not complaining. He's just like, this is what you got to do. If you want to make it, if you want to, do your own thing and prove that, you're good at what you do, you have to compete. You have to get out there. You have to work hard. Why complain about it? And then my mom's whole world was, she ended up being very bitter and resentful because it was like this view of, but I deserved this. That should have been me. I got robbed of it because whatever reason. And often it was like, if I was more attractive, the men at work would have given me a raise if I looked like the other woman in the office or something, So it was like this bitter, resentful, she was kind of like at war with the world.
Yeah.
So seeing those two things, neither of my parents are perfect. Who has perfect parents? But it was kind of like, I'd rather play over here where there's a purpose for me working hard and giving it my best shot and trying in life and figuring out what's important to me and then tailoring, all my efforts toward that. And I just thought that having a family was.
I mean, that is a real question here. Is like, what message do you prefer? And it's not just a matter of preference. It's a matter of reality as well. It's like, do you prefer the message that, hey, you can get out there, you can hustle, you can work hard, you can stick with something even when things get tough, and you can be successful? Or the other worldview is everybody's trying to oppress you. There's nothing that you can do because you're either a woman, you're a minority, like you have the world stacked up against you, including the government and everybody around you. Everybody around you wants to oppress you, and your government wants to oppress you because of your skin color or whatever demographic that you fall in underneath. The fact is, there's so many people in those same demographics that have overcome all of that and are success stories, but those aren't what you hear about. And the crazy part about it is some of these people, whether they're actors or musicians or entertainers or whatever else, they've overcome all those things, and yet they still tell the people that are within their minority group or demographic or whatever else that, hey, you're being oppressed. This is coming from a multimillionaire. It's like, well, if you were so oppressed, then how did you become successful to begin with?
Was so cool. And I wanted to have the family I didn't have. So I had this dream of like getting married, having kids, having an intact family, and making it like a place where kids can grow up without all the screaming and yelling and chaos that I had and that a lot of kids have nowadays. So didn't go to college. I had a full ride scholarship and I didn't go, which everybody thought was the end of the world. It was like, how could you do that? Your life is over. You'll never be anything. And I was kind of like, we'll see.
It is very weird that we're convinced that the only way to get educated is by an official institution with all the information that's available now. I mean, even back then, like that's the whole premise of Goodwill Hunting. Like you can get very smart from a public library. You really don't need, it's just the books are available for everyone. The information's available for everyone if you chase it down. It's not like the only people that get any information are the ones who go to these colleges.
It's one of the biggest lies that education, like we can just educate everyone. The problem is we're not educated enough. And if everyone had enough access to education, everyone would be intelligent, everyone would be thriving. It's like, the internet's kind of proved this.
I had a teacher.
It's not an information problem, right?
I had a teacher in high school that said something. I don't know if this is his quote or he was quoting someone else, but he said, education is something that allows you to get along without intelligence, and intelligence is something that allows you to get along without education.
I like that. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
and I was like, oh, I get it. There's certain people that are just dumb at certain things. Like I remember being around intelligent people that had no knowledge of how a car worked, of any of the workings of a car. You would tell, well, this is back in like, if it was anything else, if you're talking about the economy, if you're talking about the politicized, like you have to go to specific schools. You have to go to you got to get a degree. Everybody wanted to go to Ivy League schools. I lived in Boston. It was like very important. Did you get a higher education? You go on to make everybody proud, and they were all fucking miserable.
Well, my dad said this to me. He was the only person that when I graduated, I said, I don't think I want to go to college for this. I don't think that's what I want to do. Like any of the things I'm looking at when I think about like having a career in that thing, I'm not very excited about it. I don't get like, ooh, hyped up to go do this. I was like, I really just kind of want to, maybe someday, but I would love to have a bunch of kids and stuff. And my dad was like, a lot of the people in my office have degrees and, they have careers, and some of them are very miserable people. So if you don't want to do that, he's like, you could always decide to go later. So I was like, I kind of like bargained with everyone. I was like, I'm just going to give it a year.
I did that too.
Yeah. And if it, if I feel like I want to go to college after a year of no high school, then I'll go, I can still do it. But I ended up having a baby at 20, which again was and when I had her, I want to do that. And everybody was telling me, you have to go back to work. You have to go back to work. That's what we do now. 2 weeks after the baby's born, you got to go back to work. You need the money, you need the security, you need the income. And I looked around and thought, this is insane. Like, who came up with the system? Because I am going to go drop her off at 2 weeks old and let some lady who doesn't know or care about or love my baby the way that I do take care of her all day long. If you factor in the commute, it's like 9.5 hours that I'm away from her by the time I get home and feed her and give her bath to this other random person to raise my child. Who came up with this? This is stupid. And I have to pay taxes, and I have to have a second vehicle and insurance and a work wardrobe. And I just thought, this is the most inefficient, stupid system. And everyone around me is like, this is good. This is what we all need to do. Even like Christian conservative women that were friends and family members were like, well, you don't want to depend on a man because then you're going to get abused. They fear-mongered me to death about staying home with my kids. And at the time, this was my high school boyfriend who I had my first child with. Because I was kind of a libertarian at this stage, and both my parents, at this point, my parents have multiple divorces between the two of them. And I always heard, oh, marriage is just a piece of paper. What really matters is that you love each other and that sort of thing. And I'd known this guy since we were kids. We'd known each other. And he had stuff going on. And it was back to, I had to work and be a working mom. April 1st, my grandma, who's still with us. And she's probably my.
All right. So you guys get a little bit of, look, I highly suggest you go watch this entire thing. And I actually want to get Megan's take on this. Megan, are you a stay-at-home mom or?
I am. I'm a stay-at-home mom and I homeschool my kids. But I actually agree with what she was saying there, but I think if I'm remembering her correctly, I think I actually got in a big argument with her way back in the day. And I'd have to go double check, but she's part of those groups that are pushing like really hardcore trad and manosphere type stuff. Like I'm pretty sure her husband is Andrew Wilson. And it's a lot of like extreme woman hatred, or at least it used to be.
Is that who she is? She's Andrew Wilson's wife?
Yeah, it used to be back in the day. I don't know what they're doing nowadays, for example, but I actually got in a big argument with her on one of my like old accounts because she was like pushing the idea that the Bible says that women have to do an act that I can't say online, like, but that the Bible commands that we have to do that act, and that she was getting it from the Song of Solomon. So like they turned the Song of Solomon all into like this weird sexual thing. So,
yeah. Well,
and I was like, what?
Not in the New Testament anyhow. So, I mean,
but they're from the manosphere, I'm pretty sure, which that's why she's degrading her mom. When you see her there degrading her mom on that live stream, because that's what they push, is like that women are way less and all that stuff. But I agree with some of the stuff she was saying. The manosphere is really, really dangerous. I mean, I wouldn't ascribe to, and I don't ascribe to everything that Andrew Wilson says either. Later on though, she does talk about the fact when we're in the period of time, there's a couple of things, and I've talked about this in the past as well. But I've talked about the fact that like we are like, hey, we can't.
everything's so much more expensive. We can't live like a decent life anymore because of the economy, because of wage gaps, because of this problem or that problem, economic issues. And I remember a few weeks ago, maybe it might have been 2 months ago at most, I was watching something from like the 1950s. It was a show or a TV, and they were showing like this row of houses, and it's like a very small house where there's like probably 3 kids and 2 parents living in, and they have 1 car garage, and they have 1 car, and they show them at dinner table, and they have some appliances and things like that. But like today, the standard of living is you have every household has $40,000 worth of electronics. We have to have 2 cars. It's not that we can't live well on a single person's income or a single household income. It's that we chose not to because we have been so consumerized. And another point that she makes that I do agree with, she's talking about how like when women were sold this idea, and men too, by the way, it's not just women, but the Americans were sold this idea like we need to have women in the workplace. And to be an independent woman, you have to have your own career and all these other things. And this is what I found a little crazy. We had corporate America and the government who wants your tax dollars convince all women, like, hey, instead of making your kids and your family the focus, what we need you to do is we need to redirect your focus to this corporation to where you can make money for them because that's real independence. That's what's going to better society. And I think that's a huge lie. And luckily, for the most part, until we went full time with our business, my wife was able to stay home, and yeah, money was always tight, but her being able to stay home with the kids and spend that time, and I don't know what your situation is, but you being able to stay home with your kids and educate your kids and make sure that clearly you're an extremely intelligent woman. I think you're gonna do a better job than any public school system will do. And my 16-year-old right now, because the public high school here sucks so bad, he's homeschooling. And I just think that we've been sold this lie, and women especially have been sold this lie that you have to work outside the home because a career is more important than your kids. And I think society has been extremely damaged by that bill of goods. Like
Well, I
our
think
kids are not better off, our families aren't better off. Like we're not better off because of it. All we've done is become more consumers.
I think we were sold a lie even before that because the lie that we were sold is that women didn't work, and they actually did. So my great grandmother,
Yeah,
she worked her entire life outside of the home. She had like many little part-time stuff like that. And then my grandmother, she was a school bus driver. So once her kids were in school, she drove the school bus, which then she could even be around them more throughout the day. So, and then my grandpa always had a full-time job. And then my grandma did cleaning jobs at night on buildings. And even if you go back in time before that, women were working at factories, and they would take their buggies with their babies in it and park them along the streets um, outside of factories and stuff. So this idea that women never worked, like even back in the Sumerian times, there was a whole factory full of nothing
sure.
but women that we have documents on. So this idea that women never worked is just crazy. But they didn't have like a career type focus where they just stopped everything to do with life of being a woman, like having kids, raising a family, having a husband, and all that. That was all still very ingrained in everybody's life, and that was their first priority. And so there's like lie upon lie upon lie built on so many things. My life is sort of weird. I was homeless for a while, like purposely on purpose, and I traveled the country. Like I was a hitchhiker that just traveled
You
the
were an urban
country.
camper.
Yeah, I just slept outside with my sleeping bag. And then I met my first husband that way, and I got pregnant with my daughter, and we bought a school bus and did like clothing where we passed out clothing in cities and stuff like that. And then when I got pregnant, we moved to Washington state because that's where all the midwives are. So I actually had my first child in a school bus in like very close to the Canadian border in the woods. And then um after that whole thing fell apart, I actually did have to work, but I found another woman who needed to stay with her baby, and she moved in with me, and I worked so that she could stay at home with the baby and with my child. And then eventually I got with my husband that I have now, and we have two little boys that are pretty small. And but we couldn't afford to live in Washington anymore, so we had, because I actually did work there at a pretty good job, but it started to collapse somewhat because it was in the cannabis industry. So I processed and did all this stuff for legal farms there. And so then when I got pregnant with my second child, I stopped working, and we just really struggled to get by. And I sold everything that we had. And then we just moved across the entire country when I got pregnant with my second, all the way to Florida, and bought like a 3-bedroom house for $120,000. And we have, I don't buy clothes all the time. Anything I buy for myself is for like the homeschooling and their activities. And so I just live very modestly,
Yeah, and I bet you have a much more a higher quality of life, and that's the thing is like we've been so sold on this consumerism, which pun intended. Like we got to have this, and we got to have we're all guilty of it. The fact is stuff doesn't make us happy, and a bunch of zeros in the bank doesn't make us happy. And this is really true too. Like it comes a lot from other women, and I've seen this. Like when my wife was a stay-at-home mom, she always, especially when we were in the military. When I was in the military, I was constantly gone, and when I was gone, she would go back home to Georgia with her parents, and we didn't want to have her freaking get a job, even when we didn't have kids. We didn't want to have her to get a job and be stuck there in Washington State, which we both hated. We wanted her to have the freedom to be able to go back, and yeah, she could have. But even the Army wives would be like, "Oh, you don't have a job? Like, what kind of freaking deadbeat are you?" And then later on, we did have kids, and she was able to stay home, and we had moderated our life to a point to where that we lived well, we were fine, but we didn't have all the toys and a lot of the other, stuff that so many other people had because we didn't have two incomes, but we learned to make it work. And I think we were so much happier then, for sure.
You were in Washington State too?
Yep. I was at a station in Fort Lewis. I lived in Yelm.
I was on the east side of the state.
So you were on the dry side, on the desert side. I was on the wet, crappy side that like the sun goes away and I don't know.
Yeah, it's really sunny there. When it snows, it's nice. It's still pretty like warm, even when it snows, when the sun comes out. And so.
Yep. Yeah, neither one of us liked Washington. I can tell you that. I was ready to get out of there as soon as possible. All right, folks, getting back to what we've been talking about real quick, I do want to show you guys a couple of things that are relevant to what we are going to discuss here in just a minute. And one of them is this post. Actually, I want to go down here. Oh, God. Not that one. A couple of these.
I sent you a bunch of stuff to your X account, too.
Yep. It's up on the screen, right?
No. It's still Rachel Wilson.
What's that? Okay.
It's still Rachel Wilson.
There we go.
Okay, there it is.
You can't love you, Trump. But you can't imagine how we are appreciate our country, our people. I'm really appreciate. We love you. Thank you, Mr. President Trump. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Mr. President Trump.
Trump, kill Khamenei. I'm so happy. Thanks, Trump. Thanks, Trump. You are the best man in the world. I love you, Trump.
I want to have a big thanks to President Trump for keeping his promise and freeing people of Iran that has nothing to do with this government, with this terrorist government.
Love you, Trump.
All right. The reason I bring that up too is right now there's this thing going around where I don't know if it's been confirmed one way or the other. This lady is saying, you know what? I'm going to play this before we talk about it too, real quick, because this is a good one. This is definitely worth playing.
Nothing is happening. It's not playing.
So, there's this whole thing going around where there was allegedly a school that was bombed. The question is, I know it's been said that the U.S. bombs did that. I don't know if that's true.
I think it was an Israeli missile.
Well, it's also been said an Israeli missile, and it's also been said that it was a Iranian bomb that went awry. I don't know what's true.
I think it was an Israeli missile because it was in the very first several hours of the soiree that they did over that area, and it was in an area, unfortunately, where there were other military installations. And I just think, unfortunately, it because when they went in, they shut everything down. Iran really didn't respond until hours later. You know what I mean? It wasn't, they came in and and that's when that happened. So I think, unfortunately, I do think that it was a accidental missile hit.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I'm not for sure, and I can't be positive. It's just from what I understand from watching when that happened and everything. But it is quite possible that it could have been an Iranian missile that misfired and came down and hit. That I just don't think the timing is right unless that's being misreported wrong. And that's the thing with the fog of war. You have a hard time figuring these things out in the present.
Yeah.
It's just so.
It is tough. And I guess everybody's saying that video didn't play. So I'm going to play that real quick. It's short. It's worth playing. It's 30 seconds.
Yeah, could you not hear me? I was telling you it wasn't doing anything.
Democrats are brainwashed. I don't understand how you guys can support the killing of 40,000 people over the past 3 weeks. But yet when Trump bombs Iran, this is what they were asking for. They were asking to be bombed so that the government can go away. Now you guys are upset that like an elementary school of children was killed. Well, what about all the 40,000 people that were killed before? This doesn't make any sense. You guys are fake humanitarians and you guys are brainwashed. It's delusional. You guys don't make sense. Democrats are brainwashed. I don't understand how you guys can support.
That first video I played did play, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and again, people over here in the comments are saying that it was supposedly an Iranian missile misfire.
Right. That's what we're being told. Like,
yeah.
I
don't know.
People are gonna say, but it could, I could double check on it when I leave here, but I think I don't know.
Yeah, I saw a video show it was an Iranian missile. You saw it go in one direction and curve, but now I can't find it. So anyways, point being, we don't know, but look, there's going to be,
it could be, I'm not ruling it out. It's just, they didn't really start firing back for the retaliation stuff seemed to come hours later. And as far the first reports I saw on that was that it happened during that time frame that would have been the soiree, but I would have to double check that.
Yeah, I mean, they were firing anti-aircraft missiles as they were coming in, and I don't think they were effective. So again, who knows?
They could have. I just thought that in the very beginning, everything was dark and shut down, and that they couldn't pinpoint things properly, which also could have caused a missile to fall. And if it was in that area where some things were falling and they were trying to hit something over there, then yeah, it could have been from an Iranian. But these things happen, when war's going on, these type of things go, you can have all kinds of mishaps. A missile doesn't get taken down. The missile interceptors miss some and they fall, and then debris falls and hits other things. So it's just a really dangerous situation for sure.
It's war, but her point is the same as my point. Is you have all these liberals and of course the hate Israel first crowd that are going to point out that and prioritize that. But where were they when we know, and I don't know what the numbers are. People are saying 40, 50,000 protesters were killed in Iran. Don't know what the numbers are. It was a lot. It was over 1,000. I've seen videos that just people lined up dead in the street. So I think it was a lot. I don't know what those numbers are, but they didn't care about that. They didn't care about the people that were out there protesting and trying to get make their country more free and to actually fight for women's rights, but they do care about and they want to highlight, when a school gets bombed, unfortunately.
They
So
are very hypocritical on all things. They are double-minded people, as the Bible says. So
couldn't
that,
agree more.
yeah, that's sort of like how they are. Yeah, it's a hard thing to say with Iran. It's a lot of propaganda on both sides that comes out of Iran, pretty much for decades now. And then the uh, whole military, the way the military is set up there is a mosaic defense, a line of defense. So they have um, basically cells of defense capabilities that go all the way down to the neighborhood level. So when you take out one level, the rest will activate on the next level down, and so forth and so forth. It's called a mosaic defense. And then they also have they have it internally and they have it externally in their proxy nations that they have, where the Lebanon and stuff like that. So
Sure.
they have a defense system that they've put in place for decades for this exact thing that is extremely complicated and very like they have underground even sort of like cities and stuff like that. So it's just going to be kind of this whole thing is it has the potential to really go south
Yeah, I
because
mean,
just
sure. I mean, every modern nation is going to have, redundant layers of security one way or the
right.
other. This is one of the links that you sent me. I'll just read this real quick and then we'll play this video. Summing up the British approach to Iran here. U.S. asked to use
You don't
British.
have to read the thing. I just thought the video was interesting. This person's sort of downing Keir Starmer. So, so I'm trying not to be like rude to any other countries, but I just found the video really interesting where he addresses the people there in
Oh no, I
Britain.
like the text. We're going to read it. U.S. asked the
Okay.
British. We say no. Tell everyone we weren't involved and hope they leave us alone. Oh dear, they didn't leave us alone. They're shooting missiles at us. Claim the only way to stop this and protect British citizens is to destroy the missiles at source. Allow the Americans to use our bases to destroy the missiles at source. Refuse to help destroy the missiles at source, even though we just said destroying them at source is the only way to end the threat to British citizens. Tell everyone we're not involved and hope they leave us alone, which has been the British stance on most of these things. But let's play this.
They haven't been very helpful, but then they had to start coming in and giving support to intercept missiles because places are, because it's spread out now in the region. And so it's all hands on deck to intercept these missiles that are coming in.
So they're just kind of filling in coverage gaps is really what's going on there.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf.
He looks so terrible.
And explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. Over the last 2 days, Iran has launched sustained attacks across the region at countries who did not attack them. They've hit airports and hotels where British citizens are staying. This is clearly a dangerous situation. We have at least 200,000 British citizens in the region, residents, families on holiday, and those in transit. I ask all our people in the region to please register your presence and follow Foreign Office travel advice. I know this is a deeply worrying time, and we will continue to do all we can to support you. Our armed forces, who are located across the region, are also being put at risk by Iran's actions. Yesterday, Iran hit a military base in Bahrain, narrowly missing British personnel. The death of the supreme leader will not stop Iran from launching these strikes. Their approach is becoming even more reckless and more dangerous to civilians. Our decision that the UK would not be involved with the strikes on Iran was deliberate, not least because we believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement, one in which Iran agrees to give up
Yeah,
any
so pause it on
aspiration
this comment
to
right here.
develop
Oh,
a
it went away.
nuclear weapon.
Nope. I'll put it back.
And
I think it's-
I have all the same feelings about Stormer. I'm just like, we're all in a big conflict together, so I'm trying to remain as diplomatic. But yes, I feel that same way as everyone else about him. The Kurds have stated that they will be rolling in from northern Iraq to overthrow the regime. So that's another thing that's being talked about, that because I guess, you know, the striking of the thing was supposed to I'm a little confused about the whole what the plan was exactly, because they wanted to strike them really, really hard. And I think they were hoping that people would rise up and that there would be some people in the government that would also rise up and take control. Well, that hasn't happened. So now, and they have all these cheap, drones and missiles. They make them really cheap and they make them underground, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them underground, like a month and stuff. And so now there's talk about sending the Kurds in and some other tribal groups into the region as well, which is going to escalate things quite a bit. But so this statement here is true that they've been talking about that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, remind me, I want to talk about the drones, and we're going to talk about oil and a couple other things here in just a moment too that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. But real quick, I'm just going to hit some of the super chats real quick. Travis99, why do you block everyone on X who barely disagrees with you? You a lib? Shout out to Project Constitution the other day. That love you too, boo boo sent me. Absolutely hilarious. Enjoy the $10, Gary. I will enjoy the $10. And I don't block everyone that barely disagrees with me on X. If you come onto my profile and you state some nonsense like an ad hominem, I'm going to block you. I don't have time for that. I'm glad I still haven't blocked Project Constitution. So, you know, that's where I'm at with that. And if you're not an adult, and if you're too stupid, if I find that you are too stupid to waste my time on, I'm going to block you, because I just don't have time for it. I don't have time to play with idiots. I just don't. Sergeant Will, become a YouTube member. Thank you, Sergeant Will. We appreciate you becoming a member, buddy. And those of you that want to support the channel, I don't think I've said it once, but make sure you like, subscribe, all those things. And if you do want to support the channel, down in the description below, there's a link. You can become a member, and that helps us out, and we appreciate you. Nothing could make me unswear that oath. I agree. Even when in 2008, I didn't get out until the end of 2011. Obama, when he became president, he started implementing a lot of policies and redirecting our warfighting capabilities in a way that I thought was unbelievable. Completely against it. I wasn't just going to go AWOL and quit doing what I swore an oath to this country and to follow the Constitution and my oath of enlistment. That means you continue to do the job even if you disagree until that enlistment is over with, and that's what I decided to do. Decided to go do other things. Because I didn't like the direction that he was taking the military and what we were doing in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I have sort of the same thought process, even though I'm not in the military. So, like, even though there might be some stuff that I'm sort of worried about or concerned about, or that I might be have negative feelings towards, I am once my fellow countrymen and the troops are engaged in a process that has been started and I have no way of, you know, stopping it, I now have to have my country's back, my country fellows back and stuff like that. So that's how I've sort of been processing and feeling about everything that's gone on, is like, well, it started, so now we're gonna have to be positive and try to give support America and our allies and stuff like that in the region, and not be like super negative. So I don't like this whole immediately everyone coming out and like attacking and being super negative and stuff about everything. So that's sort of how I also feel. Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have every right to disagree with our government on every level. Where I think,
and I do quite often.
Yeah,
So.
no, I agree with you. Where I think you cross a line is when you start rooting for our enemy, like we saw with Ryan Matta and many
Yeah.
other people that are doing right now that are saying, like, they hate. Again, these are the hate Israel first crowd. They hate Israel so much that they want the United States to lose and they want Iran to win. That's where they put their hatred for Israel above all else. Nothing else matters with these people. And that's kind of
Yeah,
where we're at.
that's disgusting.
Are you going to bring Marcus J. Allen back on? Well, I can only bring Marcus J. Allen back on if he wants to come on. So Marcus has kind of been intentionally, I don't know, off social media. The last time I talked to him about him coming on, he was basically like, you know what, I'm just kind of sick of all this. He wants to, he was, from my understanding and what he was conveying to me, was like, I'm not going to even mess with this till the trial comes around. So, I mean, Marcus always has a open
Maybe he would
invitation.
talk about the war stuff though.
And he may be. I haven't looked at his, but I haven't seen him on X at all, really.
Oh.
I saw him like maybe a month ago make a comment, and that's when I was like, "Hey, man, when are you coming back on?" And we had a little bit of dialogue going on there, but I think and rightfully so. I think he's just completely turned off with the nastiness that social media is. No matter how you present the information, you're going to be, you're going to be dragged through the mud, and Also, did you watch SRS 155 yet? I have not, and I will at some point. Also, thank you for the great coverage. Candace is a grifting pile, and thank you for fighting the good fight. If you ever come to Oregon, let's keep it half him away. Love to come hang out and shoot with you, buddy. If I ever come to Oregon, I will let you know. UK boy, WTF happened to the British? I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Gary, I sent you a text on how the insurance companies in London are panicking. Trump just opened their eyes.
Yeah, I sent you something about that as well.
Okay. I will get those prepped while we're watching the end of this. And then again, I want to show you guys something regarding, or discuss something regarding what's going on
this
with
up too. You can, there's a settings down
know how
and
it
you can
works.
speed that up.
We'll go 1.5. It'll sound like a normal person talking probably.
But Iran is striking British interests nonetheless, and putting British people at huge risk, along with our allies across the region. That is the situation we face today. Our partners in the Gulf have asked us to do more to defend them, and it is my duty to protect British lives. We have British jets in the air as part of coordinated defensive operations, which have already successfully intercepted Iranian strikes. But the only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source, in their storage depots, or the launchers which are used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region. And we will also bring experts from Ukraine together with our own experts to help Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones attacking them. I want to be very clear. We all remember the mistakes of Iraq, and we have learned those lessons. We were not involved in the initial strikes on Iran, and we will not join offensive action now. But Iran is pursuing a scorched earth strategy, so we are supporting the collective self-defense of our allies and our people in the region.
All right. I've had about enough of that limp-wristed response there. We can't even decide what team we're on, and we can't even go out and say, like, hey, you know what? Iran is evil, because they are. Here's one of the other links.
What I found interesting about this was him talking about how the region is being attacked, and that their partners in the region, which would be the other Gulf countries, are asking for help. And the reason why they're doing that is because they have ran through their stockpiles of missile interceptors and stuff. These things aren't, add an affinity available and stuff
Sure.
like that. And so some reports were saying that they had gone through like years worth of supplies just in a couple of days. So it's getting pretty dire for the Gulf countries if people don't step up and supply missile interceptors for them and stuff, because they're going to run out. So so I thought that was important. And then if you go to the picture that I sent you of the in your X account, I sent you a picture of their weapon systems that they have. It looks like a semi trailer with a missile.
Yeah, it actually looks like a little box van
Yeah, it's
with,
yeah, a box van. It's a loitering munition. So if when we pull that up, that's sort of what they're firing all over the place at the Gulf, because they move them around. They move them around and then they hide them and stuff. So they're pretty hard to find. But
I'll pull
what's
those up in
this?
a minute. It's kind of a pain in the ass to like.
Oh,
I
this
got
is the so this is Witkoff. So Witkoff doesn't actually work for the government. It's pretty funny. He's just Trump's he's just Trump's he's just Trump's friend, but Trump sends him all over the place along with Jared Kushner to do diplomatic talks. So he goes to Russia a lot, he goes to Ukraine, and he's been doing a lot of the talks with the Gaza deal and the Arab countries there. So that's who this guy is, Witkoff, Steve Witkoff.
Got it.
So
I don't think this is actually Barron Trump, but it's Barron Trump News. Holy smokes, Iran straight up admitted they're sitting on 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. They know that's enough for 11 nuclear bombs. They said it was zero shame. Let that sink in. And Democrats still want to play nice. President Trump saw the threat and acted. No hesitation, no weakness. America first means you don't wait for a mushroom cloud. He did what a real commander-in-chief does, protect the homeland. End of story. We'll play this. See what he has to say.
90% materials, Sean, can be brought to 90%. That's weapons grade, in roughly 1 week, maybe 10 days at the outside. The 20% can be brought to weapons grade inside of 3 to 4 weeks. And let me say this, because I forgot this small little detail. In that first meeting, both the Iranian negotiators said to us directly, with no shame, that they controlled 460 kilograms of 60%, and they're aware that that could make 11 nuclear bombs, and that was the beginning of their negotiating stance. So they were proud of it. They were proud that they had evaded all sorts of oversight protocols to get to a place where they could deliver 11 nuclear bombs.
All right. So when I hear these types of stories, I do become a little concerned and obviously very skeptical. It starts sounding a lot like weapons of mass destruction to me.
yeah, I found this interesting because everybody knows, like in the geopolitical world, that Iran is enriching uranium. Like, it's not a big secret. What's the sort of narrative, and I call out narratives, so that's what I do, is that they're going to have a nuclear bomb at any moment. So anytime they want us to get upset about Iran, that's what will start pushing, is like, any moment Iran's going to make a bomb. But everybody knows that they what their plan is, and it could have changed. I don't have the intel that the United States has, right?
Sure.
But over the years and years, the plan has been that they want to have the capacity ready to make atomic bombs if they are attacked. So say at this very moment right now, if they're starting to take on barrages, they want the capability to go underground where they have their facilities and hook and start those nuclear weapons so they can hook them up. And that's sort of been their narrative and the narrative that people talk about in the geopolitical world. Now, is this dangerous? Yes. Do we want them to have a nuclear bomb? No. You know what I mean? But that's not like news or anything. You know what I mean? That's sort of been what they've always said, because they feel like they need a deterrence in the Middle East from the countries that don't like them. And then the people that don't like them, their narrative is these people, if they have the capabilities of making a bomb, they're going to bomb us. You know what I mean? So that's the two competing narratives going on in the Middle East with these countries. So, but I found it interesting that that's what they said, if that's true, when they went into that meeting, was they said, we have the capability to make 11 nukes. So they were probably trying to scare them into not attacking them so that they could say, if you attack us, we have the capability to make 11 nukes. And that probably wasn't the best negotiating strategy with
Not with Trump.
somebody like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So that didn't work out very well for them at all.
Yeah, and
So,
look, this is the problem that we have going back to 9/11, right? This could be true. And again, I do think that what we're talking about is a very justified military conflict. I think it is very justified. We have tried to get Iran to the negotiating table. We've told them, and this has been a red line for the Trump administration and other administrations, not really with the Obama administration, but this has been a red line that we said, hey, you are not going to have a nuclear weapon, period. Like, this is non-negotiable. And we gave them opportunity after opportunity to come to the table and to figure out something that was amenable to everybody, but they were just playing a game. And they've been playing this game for a really long time. And I
yeah, and
100%.
I wasn't completely against the Iranian deal because I thought it was a good idea to keep an eye on what they're actually doing. What I didn't like about the Iranian deal was giving them all that money. Remember when he
Yeah,
released all that money, which then allowed them to build up all the capabilities that our country and the Gulf states and
they're
Israel are
funding
now
terrorists.
having to deal with. That they built all this whole system up with the money that Obama gave them. So I didn't have a problem with watching what they were doing, making a deal. Okay, if you feel comfortable, but we're going to watch everything you're doing. And if you're doing anything you're not supposed to be doing, then there's going to be a problem. But giving them all that money was a terrible idea,
Well,
in
I
my
think the whole,
opinion.
I don't think that was the problem with the Iran nuclear deal, was the enforcement piece of that. I'm not convinced that we were ever able to actually
Oh,
monitor and enforce any of that stuff. I think they could have been doing a lot of things, underground,
that
secretly,
is true. Yeah,
and
that is
and
true.
nobody trusts the Iranians. They're going to lie. They're going to tell you, and like that has been proven time and time again. Um, yeah, look, here's the thing. Like, if we went back to Iraq and we went to some degree, we went back to Iraq and we found actual weapons of mass destruction. I do believe, by the way, that he did have a weapons of mass destruction program. I just don't know, and I do, and was good intel that, number one, elements of that were found, and the rest were shipped out of Iraq. So that could have been true. The problem is like, hey, did we really have any predicate for going in there? And that's where things get a little dicey for me. But we would have a government that would have more credibility if we did find weapons of mass destruction. And here we kind of the government blew their credibility on Iraq with that whole thing, because now we have a real threat. We have Iran that has been going around, that is definitely guilty of killing thousands of Americans, that is definitely funding terrorism all over the world. And they are a real threat, and they should not have nuclear weapons. But now we as Americans are hesitant to do anything about it because we're traumatized by 20 years of unjustified warfare and this long occupation. And that's another thing
Yeah,
too.
they have they are funding proxy groups in the region that
Oh yeah,
cause a lot of problem for the Gulf states.
Hezbollah,
And
Hamas. Yeah,
yeah, and so what they're up to lately in the Gulf states is, like, if you've noticed, there's sort of a shift in the way that the states are behaving, the countries there. They're more open to each other. They're making deals with each other. There's the board of peace. They want to have economic trades with each other and get along more than it used to be back in the day. And so that's where everyone's trying to shift to. And then yet you have these Iran funding these proxy groups that are sort of causing problems for people. They cause problems for the shipping lanes and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's one of the things. It's just that the Middle East is such a powder keg that doing any kind of thing like this can set off a whole chain of reaction that can be causing a lot of problems that we're seeing now. You know what I mean? Because even inside these Gulf countries, there are militia groups that are for Iran, and now they're breaking out with clashes and they're shooting at like the government buildings there and stuff like that. So, do you see what I'm saying? Like the Middle East is not, you know, it's not
No, I
Venezuela where
mean,
you just take
the
the leader
problem is,
away and
look,
everybody's chill, you
you
know?
have an unstable region
Yeah,
that
very
generally
unstable.
oppose America and our proxy Israel, or by proxy Israel, however you want to frame that. And then on top of that, you have someone like Iran that's going around and destabilizing it further. And it just like we could have peace in the Middle East. Iran is a major interruption to the ability to have any sort of peace in the Middle East. I don't think we would have seen October 7th take place in Israel without Iran's influence and support and planning and everything else. I don't think that it would have been without Iran helping those in Gaza. I don't think we would have seen the escalation. So there's a lot of things that we can tie back to Iran, and Iran is a real problem. It's always been a problem. And, you know, I mentioned this the other day. I was so angry during the Iraq war that, you know, we knew we had Iran making these explosively formed projectiles, the EFPs, that were zipping through our MRAPs, multi-million-dollar vehicles that were supposed to be mine-resistant, ambush-proof vehicles. They were the ones that were able to make those much more sophisticated weapons, like the geometry that you have to have with the copper plates, like in a shape charge, like it's extremely complicated, and the Iraqis wouldn't be able to make it. We knew that where they're coming from. We never held them accountable until Trump did. So, you know, like we've ignored this threat, and that was not something that Obama was going to pursue for sure. Let me hit this super chat real quick. Marcus Allen, his wife, just had a baby. Congratulations to Marcus. I knew that she
Oh,
was
they're
pregnant.
super busy then.
Yeah. He's got a better thing to do. Firepower America showing the world. FAFO, Iran. I don't threaten the United States. This MF Trump ain't playing. I agree with that. Like Trump, look, when he says it, he's serious. There's no doubt about that.
I just hope they have a plan to get all this under control, because it
I
sure
agree.
has heated up over there. I follow the war channels, and so
Mhm.
all day long I'm like watching all the missiles dropping or getting intercepted, or like some actually hit locations and stuff like that. So I'm a little like, oh,
Yeah,
this-
look, I think we're doing a pretty good job containing most of this for the most part right now.
well, there's a
it could've-
general. The general updated us, or he's not a general. What is he? He's the leader of
CENTCOM?
CENTCOM.
Yeah, he's a
He
general.
updated us last night on a video that I sent you.
Well, matter of fact, I'll play that real quick before I play CJ's video. And this is the one. Is it showing right now?
Express my deepest condolences.
Yeah, you just got to make it big.
Good afternoon. I'm Admiral Brad Cooper, the
Hey, Brad.
commander of United States Central Command. In this capacity, I lead U.S. military forces in the Middle East. I'm here to provide you an update on Operation Epic Fury, now in our 4th day of execution. First, I'd like to express my deepest condolences to the families and teammates of the extraordinary Americans who've been killed in action. And I'd also like to extend our prayers for a speedy recovery to the wounded. Yesterday, you heard from Secretary Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Today, I'd like to give you an operational update on where we are and provide you with some key facts. By order of the President of the United States and the Secretary of War, our military in the Middle East is undertaking an unprecedented operation to eliminate Iran's ability to threaten Americans, as they've been doing for nearly half a century. Having spent more than 36 years in the military, I could not be prouder of America's sons and daughters in uniform who are answering the call. More than 50,000 troops, 200 fighters, 2 aircraft carriers, and bombers from the United States are participating in this operation, and more capability is on the way. These forces bring a massive amount of firepower, representing the largest buildup by the U.S. in the Middle East in a generation. In the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. Central Command forces, together with Israel, delivered overwhelming and unprecedented strikes into Iran. Many of you may remember the shock and awe strikes of 2003. The first 24 hours of this operation were nearly double the scale, and we continue with 24/7 strikes
Look, I just think they would be so much smarter just avoiding any reference back to 2003. I really do think, like, yeah, we
I was
remember.
thinking
We
that same
remember.
thing.
I was on the ground with the shock and awe in Iraq. I was with the Expeditionary Force, rolling through there, went straight to Baghdad. We defeated everybody, but then we still ended up in a 20-year-long war.
And
We're still over there.
if you remember too, the public was super popular about it in the first couple of weeks. You know, everyone was super happy, and then it
I think the
really
first
went
year.
downhill. Yeah, well, I mean, just in the very beginning though, like people were like how we are now, like yay, and then it sort of went like tapered down from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be a fast thing too.
It was. Until we had what was her name? Cindy Sheehan started coming out. Her son was killed, and she became a very anti-war protester, very vocal and prolific. Anyways,
into Iran from seabed to space and cyberspace. Now we're less than 100 hours into this operation, and we've already struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions. We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. Our B-2 bombers and B-1 bombers have executed uncontested surgical strikes against multiple missile facilities deep inside Iran. And then just last night, a B-52 bomber force struck ballistic missile and command and control posts. We are also seeing.
It is hilarious that we are so unafraid of Iran that we're now using B-52s. That to me is actually kind of funny.
Sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. For decades, the Iranian regime has harassed international shipping. Today, there's not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman, and we will not stop. We will continue to conduct dynamic targeting operations. We're hunting Iran's last remaining mobile ballistic missile launchers to eliminate what I would characterize as their lingering launch
I sent you.
Yep, that one right there.
capability.
Looks like a U-Haul van.
Now, in retaliation, the Iranian regime has launched over 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones. To be clear, Iran is indiscriminately targeting civilians as they launch these missiles and drones. You've seen it on TV. The evidence is crystal clear and overwhelming. Having said this, we are seeing Iran's ability to hit us and our partners is declining, while our combat power, on the other hand, is building. And my overall operational assessment is that we are ahead of our game plan. Along the way, every single branch of our military is achieving unprecedented success. I'll talk about just a few of them. Our naval forces have deployed multiple waves of cruise missiles, obliterating Iranian command and control and air defense capabilities. From 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, we're squeezing Iran from the sea and have them backed into their own ports. U.S. air forces are doing what they do best, executing a high volume of airstrikes right into Iran.
I wasn't in the Navy, but I do have a question about this. Anybody in the Navy that knows about this? I'm always curious when they show these missiles launching, and you have this video from the deck. Do they have some sort of built-in cameras for this? Or are they intentionally placing cameras just for, some good footage to put on YouTube? I'm just curious if anybody knows that. So if you have an answer for that, throw that down in the comments. Some of my sailors out there.
Waves of cruise missiles, obliterating Iranian command and control and air defense capabilities. From 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, we're squeezing a high volume of airstrikes right into Iran. Operationally, the 2 most powerful air forces in the world, the U.S. and Israel, are dominating the skies of the world's largest state sponsor of terror. Our U.S. Army soldiers are defending ourselves and our partners, and in a historic first, the U.S. Army fired long-range precision strike missiles called PRISMs in combat, providing an unrivaled deep strike capability. Also, for the first time, U.S. Central Command's drone task force, called Task Force Scorpion Strike, launched countless one-way attack drones, achieving massive effects. I'd like to point out these drones were originally an Iranian design. We took them back to America, made them better, and fired them right back at Iran. I just
That's, you got to admit, that's kind of funny. Like we stole your intellectual property, we made them better, and now we're sending them back to you.
Us could not be prouder of our men and women in uniform, leveraging innovation to create dilemmas for the enemy. There is no adversary too determined, no mission too difficult for the great soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen that make up the most powerful military the world has ever seen. Our military objectives are crystal clear, and our people are executing an immensely complex and historic mission with relentless lethality, conviction, and professionalism. And we've just begun. But I have the utmost confidence that we, alongside our partners, will absolutely achieve our military objectives. To all our warriors, Godspeed. Thanks so much.
So that's very reassuring, right? To hear it's like, okay, I'm like, because I'm getting really worried, all this breaking out all over the region, all this crazy stuff's happening. Then I saw that last night and I was like, okay, well, he seemed very confident, so I'm gonna go with what that guy said. Okay, this is about the City of London Maritime, which actually I found this really interesting because of my video I made that you were referencing earlier. So, because in that video, I talk about the London financial stuff involved with Iran. And so, anyway, so what this is that the City of London, so London is a service city for financial stuff. So they sell insurances, they sell availability to shell corporations and banking, offshore banking accounts and stuff like that. And so the City of London actually sells maritime insurance. They're the largest ones there that do it. There's different companies. I can't remember exactly their names. But then Trump, they started pushing whenever there's a war, the insurance goes up to what's called a wartime rate.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they started pushing it up like 5 times over that wartime rate to stop ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz, which would benefit Iran because Iran wants that shut down, but they couldn't do it because they took out the Navy and stuff like that. So then Iran tried to shut it down. I'm thinking now this is just me being conspiratorial, so nobody like take me for
Now, real quick, I just want to read this for our people that are listening to this.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
And this is CJ sent this to me. But Donald Trump
I sent that to you too.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so you guys are double teaming me over here. All right, so Donald Trump tweeted, effective immediately, I've ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide a very reasonable price political risk insurance that guarantees for the financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy traveling through the Gulf. This will be available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. No matter what, the United States will ensure the free flow of energy to the world. The United States' economic and military might is the greatest on earth, all caps, just like President Trump likes to do. More actions to come. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump.
Right, so they tried to shut down the shipping by affecting the maritime insurance rates and stuff like that to try to halt the stuff coming through, because then that will affect people's growing upsetness with the war, right? And if people aren't able to get their oil and stuff like that, it's going to cause more unrest. And that's what Iran is really trying to do. They are trying to hold it together as long as they can until pressure from the world, because they use that a lot. They're really good with that kind of thing, is getting the world upset with Israel or the United States or whatever. And so then, and to just keep on being able to survive as long as they can until we run out of munitions, because some of these things we don't have like a huge stockpile of, especially since a bunch of it got used in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And not just in our country, but like all over the world. So England's really short. Germany's really short because of the Ukrainian war. So, and we don't fix these things as fast as Iran can make those really cheap missiles the way they do it. And the interceptors cost a lot of money too and are more complicated. So
Sure. No, that's great. I do want to confirm this, Khan, or any of the other mods over there. If Trump jumps in here, do not Do not put him in timeout for all caps. He can when Trump jumps in here. So just want to we can give him a pass. I do want to share this because this is a really important element of this that really the last tweet just played into a little bit. And this is something I hadn't really considered or thought about until I saw a different video, but this one covers it as well. And this right here, you can see the tweets from Peter St. Ongi. I've never heard of him before. 90% of Iran's oil was going to China. 70% of Venezuela's oil was going to China. China's now facing a 2 million barrel hole, and the world is on notice, and the petrodollar does not forgive. So I guarantee you this was part of their calculus. They already hit Venezuela. They knew that that would start strangling China for oil and energy. And now I guarantee one of the decision points was the fact that we get the added bonus of further strangling China with oil from Iran. So I'll play this real quick. I haven't even watched this. I'm curious to hear what he says. I'm sure it's a longer version of the tweet, but let's play it, see what happens.
Is the decapitation of Iran about
It's not on the screen.
program?
Oh God, hold on.
Or
I don't know why it's doing that. I got all the right buttons clicked. There we go.
is it about China and the future of the dollar as reserve currency? In case you spent the weekend touching grass, Saturday morning Donald Trump bombed Iran, apparently wiping out the leadership who were helpfully having a giant staff meeting for their monthly TPS reports. Now, Trump hopes this sets off a scramble for power. Critics call it bomb and pray, with candidates including the deposed prince, a military junta, or low-echelon regime officials who might have very short life expectancies. But what happens in Iran does not stay in Iran because of the millions of barrels of oil Iran was exporting, 90% of which was going to China, even higher than the 70% of Venezuela oil that was going to China. And none of it was being paid in US dollars, since both Venezuela and Iran are sanctioned on the SWIFT dollar payment system. Now, this is raising questions whether Iran was actually a strategic strike against China, who's already reeling from a real estate crisis and massive overcapacity in manufacturing, which is exacerbated by Trump's trade war. The background is China has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the Ukraine war, gobbling up Russian oil and gas that used to go to Europe and getting it at a fat discount since it is sanctioned. This turned Russia into China's biggest oil and gas provider, and China now buys nearly half of Russian oil, which is about double its pre-war share. China was doing the same with Iran and Venezuela, buying their sanctioned oil at a fat discount, essentially buying shoplifted groceries on the street instead of going into Walmart and paying like everybody else, which gave it a big cost advantage. For scale, 25% of China's pre-war oil imports came from Russia, Venezuela, and Iran. That's risen to 40%, of which half were Venezuela and Iran. Now, the last time America strangled oil on an Asian country, it led to Pearl Harbor. That was 1940s Japan, which was forced to either walk away from its China invasion or seize oil-rich European colonies. Today, the most likely outcome is China has to outbid the other half of Russian oil, most of which today is going to India, which also re-exports a hefty chunk black market to Europe. Almost all of this oil is by ship from the Arctic since Ukraine bombed Russia's oil pipelines, meaning it is very easy to switch. So China loses its cheap oil, India and Europe will have to scramble for supply.
I like how he says Ukraine. Like Ukraine has the ability to sabotage the oil pipeline at I don't know what depths. It was the United States, folks. That was the Biden administration, just so we're clear.
Yeah. The idea that Ukraine could pull something like that off is the most ridiculous thing imaginable.
With their Navy and their deep diving capabilities.
They'll even buy American. There's a final.
I just hate propaganda. I don't care who it's coming from. I don't even care if it benefits us. I hate it. Like, just say the truth. Like, we know the Biden administration bombed that, completely destroyed that pipeline.
D to the 3D chess, saying Iran was not about mullahs, it was not about China, it was about the petrodollar. The idea that the U.S. punishes countries who don't price oil in dollars to defend the dollar as reserve currency, which allows $38 trillion in debt. There's an entire industry blaming U.S. wars on petrodollar defense. Essentially, when a regime stops pricing oil in dollars, his days are numbered. Trump knocking out the two biggest non-dollar oil exporters would be right on cue. So it's next brought to you by I Trust Capital in a single morning Trump.
All right, we're not going to listen to his advert there. But, that brings up another interesting, we talked a little bit about this on the phone, I think, actually. Speaking of Russia, I think it's a real shame that the U.S. policy has continued to push Russia into the enemy zone, and we've been so adversarial going back. I think, even going back to George Bush Sr.'s presidency,
Yes,
much
it
like
goes
George
back.
H.W.
It goes back right after the Cold War. So after the Cold War,
Yep,
the Gorbachev was actually being super friendly with us and was
yep,
agreeing with everything. And he was even saying they were lying to him about a lot of stuff that they were going to do with NATO and everything after they removed themselves from Germany. So they made Gorbachev believe things that weren't true. And so Gorbachev even said, can we join NATO, and be like friends and stuff? And then they're like, oh no,
Putin did too.
we're gonna make this. Yeah, Putin did too to the Clinton. And
Yep,
so they were going to make this other organization that they said that that would be more about security in Europe and stuff, and that they could join that thing. And then they just didn't do that and started immediately being hostile to them and causing issues all along their border and stuff. And so it actually makes me sad too, because I
yeah,
actually have
I
I
think we
have
missed a huge opportunity back then to make them an
yeah.
ally and align our interests. Um,
I
and
have
I
an
think,
affinity towards the Russian people in that area, and I have a huge interest in the Middle East's history in general, like going all the way back into like Middle Ages and stuff. I'm really into all that history, like the steppes, like just it's so interesting. So I have a little bit of an affinity towards the people in that area, and I really like the Russian people, and to me, they're more like us than the Middle East or like
they're different.
South
They're much more
America
Western.
or
Yeah,
yeah. So it is a shame
yeah.
that
I
we've
mean,
made them such an adversary.
yeah,
But
and we've not only been hostile, um, we have continued throughout the Bush years, Obama. I think Trump tried to start trying to make peace with them a little bit. We've provoked them all the way down the line, and you know, look, there's good arguments on both sides of that, but I think that we missed that opportunity, and right now we could have an ally in them if we had been more friendly to them. But what we did have is you can call it a deep state, you can call it the military industrial complex, or whatever else. They had a lot of their justification for existing built around combating Russia, really the
after
Soviet
the
bloc.
Cold War, yeah, after the Cold
Yeah,
War, so much was put into um defeating communism, so
mhm,
many operations, so many um the whole industrial complex was built around that they didn't want to eliminate it. And so then that's why we got the wars in Yugoslavia and all that then trickled into the wars in the Middle East, because they want to keep that money going. They can't not have an enemy like Russia,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So
no,
so that sort of negatively affected that. But there are people who are concerned that Russia is going to strike back, or possibly China, and get involved in this war. And they're just not going to do that because, one, they don't have the capabilities to do stuff like that. You can't just, like, it's not a movie where, Putin gets on the phone and says, send them over there. And because they don't have bases all along the way, they don't have the aircraft carriers that gas the planes in the sky. You know what I mean? They just don't have those type of capabilities. Their
Yeah.
capabilities, they have really good capabilities, but they are built around defending their borders. Whereas in our capabilities, because we have military bases all over the place, we make military equipment to send our guys
Project
everywhere.
power.
And they just don't have that, and neither does China. Everything they have is defending. Now, Russia did have bases like in Syria and certain parts that they did have that they built in during the Soviet Union inroads and during when it was the Soviet Union, because and then even going farther back into the Great Game and in history, but they had to abandon a lot of that. They were keeping Syria propped up for a while. They had to abandon all that when the proxy war started on their border in Ukraine. They couldn't be divided up like that. So they've had to fall back to their border to keep things. And they are trying to disrupt all the countries around their border. They're in Georgia doing stuff and all that. So, and it's the same thing over in China. They have, we have China surrounded with bases, and that's why they have to go up and out that way to get their oil and their trade and stuff, because of how we have the island chain locked down, and we sort of have them surrounded. And we've put even troops in Taiwan, which is China considers it part of the Chinese mainland, and so does international law. And it's literally right there off of their country. It's just an island. It's actually where all the right-wing people that lost the Civil War during the Cultural Revolution, they went to Taiwan and they set up shop there. And so it's just a huge disputed thing, but they're not going to leave their borders either, because they're surrounded. Russia's surrounded, and so they just don't have, one, the capabilities, and two, their main goal is just to defend their borders from the United States. So
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, they're so tied up on the Ukraine front, especially. I mean, their resources have been completely depleted. There's no way they're going to be able to project power outside
and
of that.
also, China's having some serious issues with their military. There's been like a huge shakeup in their military where they've changed a bunch of top leaders and stuff. Like, something's going on over there with the military. Like, yeah. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they're doing that, but there's a huge shakeup over there right now too.
On a lighter note, the eclipse truth. Do all caps just annoy Gary? They annoy everybody. And
No, it's a live streaming rule. When you're in a live stream, you don't use all caps, because the people moderating the chat get distracted by it, and then they miss things that go through, and then the person hosting the show gets distracted by it too.
Well, and it's just a desperate call for attention, and that's what annoys me. So just so we know, but yeah, there's no point in it. It's not gonna. If anything, it's gonna get your message ignored. If anything else, but what we don't ignore is super chats. So I want to hit some of these. Check your text video explaining Iran. Okay, I don't. Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. I think we already played this one. Yeah, we did. All right, this is where I'm at. These things move on me, and then I got to find where I left off. 40 minutes behind. My 95-year-old grandmother had a job outside of the home when my dad and his brothers were growing up. Never was shamed for it. Yeah, look, I just like Megan said, we've always had women working outside the home, depending on their situation or opportunities that they wanted to jump on. That's always taken place. The other thing is, even my problem with that is that, like, we had a culture shift where they convinced women that working outside of the home was more valuable than working inside the home. That's my premise. And look, women working inside the home work too. Like, they're raising kids. If we go back, like, they were taking care of animals. They were doing all these crazy things. They were, doing bookkeeping work for their husband, their families, their husband's businesses. Women have always worked.
Churning butter.
Churning butter, milking cows, beating kids, whatever's going on, right? But the fact is like, that was always more valuable work than anything that they could do in the corporate world. And for those of you people out there and women out there that want that, that's fine. That works for you. I just don't like the idea that society has said, hey, that work is more valuable than what women did in the home, because what they did in a lot of the problems that we have in society today we can trace back to elements of that, whether it's, having the single, that was the other thing. They advocated, they said it was better to be a single mother. Better to be a single mother. That's the message that they had. I remember watching all kinds of videos just as a kid in the 80s, them talking about that. Like, it's so empowering. Like this idea, and all it is a trick to get women to go do the same work in a corporate setting. And that was another thing that Rachel Wilson, I thought, was very powerful, mentioned in that video. And please go watch that whole thing. You can pick and choose what you like out of it. I don't know what her entire philosophy is. I don't know. I'm not advocating for everything she said, because I haven't even watched about a third of it. But, one of the things she said is, like, they sold you on this idea that you're going to go be this boss chick and you're going to be at the top of the corporate ladder and you're going to be signing deals and, drinking champagne. And that's not what happens to 99% of not just women, but people. What really happens is you get stuck in this mid-level job, whether it's waitressing, whether it's, mid-level management at a corporation or whatever it is. It's not the glamorous thing that you think it is. And the value that you're getting out of that, the money that you're getting out of that, doesn't compare to the idea of raising a family. And there's so many women that have been tricked out of the pleasure and the joy and the satisfaction of raising kids, because we've been sold the idea that working outside of the home is more valuable than that. That's kind of my premise for that whole thing. But yeah, look, women have always been in the workforce. They've always been doing great things. I just hate that we've devalued the family. We've
Yeah.
devalued, like, parents staying together even when things are tough. And I'm not saying that everybody should never get divorced, but I'm saying we've made divorce too easy. We've sold the idea that a childhood is just as good, or a family is just as good if they're a single mother or a single father, for that matter. Like, kids need both. And it's, I don't know. We've been sold a bill of goods, and it's not for the betterment of America or better for the average American. It's better for corporate America, and it's better for our government to get more taxes. Gary, thank you for your service. I greatly appreciate that you and so many others provided me with safety and freedom. Well, thank you, Janet. I'm extremely lucky. I know so many people that have that aren't as fortunate as I am. Be prepared, patriots. When this stuff pops off here in the homeland, Obama's ROEs come to mind, and we will be in the neutered command. No, that's not going to happen. Not to say stuff won't pop off. I am very concerned about these sleeper cells. I'm very concerned about all
I
the
am as well.
immigration that has went unfettered for so many years. We have no idea who's in this country, and we've already seen it take place with the shooting in Austin, and I believe there was another one. I don't remember if it was terrorist related or not, in Chicago area, in Illinois, if I'm not mistaken.
And in
So
Britain too, there was like a horrible stabbing of a bunch of young kids that were getting dropped off at school, and I saw some of the footage of that, and oh my gosh. Like and they didn't say if it was related or not, but it could have been. And then, so yeah, it's a super dangerous situation for everybody involved, for the Gulf states who are our allies, for Israel, for our military people, for the European countries. It's very, we need to be praying for everyone.
yeah, no, look, there's wars and rumors of wars. I think the Bible talks about that in Revelation specifically. One parent is totally unnatural. I agree. I mean, again, for a child developed, especially boys, like, the reason that we have so many effeminate males is they've been raised by effeminate males, raised by mothers only. And I have a real problem with that. Like, we need a lot more masculinity. There's nothing toxic about it in this country. And I don't think, look, going back to Bezmenov, what he was talking about, how the Russians infiltrating our society, infiltrating education institutions, and putting out these ideas. I think it goes all the way back to that. And I think this is part of the grand long-term plan to destroy America. Break up.
But that was an operation they put in, then they collapsed, but it's like an operation, that, like a computer model that they plugged in, and then it just never stopped, even though they're not pushing it anymore.
Once they get those people in place and they've been sold on that ideology, they're going to self-perpetuate.
Yeah, and also it doesn't just come from them. Like the guy who brought it into the school system in the 90s was a Brazilian weirdo that had like a cult that came up because he kept getting kicked out of Brazil, or the cities he was in, because of his radical teaching that he was teaching to people. Like he would get hired as a teacher, and then to help people who were poor that couldn't read, like people lived in these favelas, because the Brazil wanted them to like do better in their life or whatever. And so he'd get hired, but all he would do is find out what their grievances were first. So he'd send in teachers to like find out all their grievances. Then he would develop the program of teaching them to read based off these grievances, like, you live in a favela, let's spell that out, you know what I mean? And these are the people that are ruling over you. And then there'd be like a revolution, and he would get kicked out. And so then he came to America and met up with this dude named John something, who had inroads into Harvard, who was all depressed because his teaching thing that he put together, Harvard didn't like or whatever. And so he was like in a low place in his life and drinking. And him and this Brazilian crazy psychopath got together, and they were talking like all night long, and he told him his teaching style. And so that's how it got into Harvard, and then it spread from there.
Well, I think communism.
Critical pedagogy. That's what it's called.
I mean, I think communism was interjected into our. I don't doubt that had some major impact, but I mean, communism was definitely being interjected into our education system. I mean, long before that, in the 60s, 70s.
In the 60s. I'm just saying, like, that's one of so what I was trying to say, it wasn't just all Russian communists. The communists are coming from everywhere. They were in all places and countries, and they get these weird, it's almost like a spell. So when I talk about it on my channel, when I talk about when we get into like Marxism and communism, I talk about it like it's a spell, because it literally comes from dudes that were doing alchemy and writing really weird writings way back in the day, who were getting their stuff from ancient cults. Do you know that guy, what's his name, that did the triangle, Pythagoras, where we get our triangle math from? Do you know what I'm talking about? That guy had a hippie cult way back in the day and wrote a bunch of crazy stuff that people still were using, philosophers, up into the time period where the communism thing came from. So it's like super wicked, occultic. It's got really weird occultic ties. So it's almost like a spell that takes over people.
Well, look, I think communism is a compelling. It's easy to sell. It's hard to implement, and never turns out the way that you expect it to. I mean, that's the thing about communism. It's like, look, we should all be equal. We should. I mean, that sounds
But
great.
there's a lot more to it than just that,
sure.
Gary.
Sure, I know.
Like,
of course there is. I mean, that's what they sell you on. And they talk about, the first thing they do is try to divide you, just like you're talking about. They point out the disparities between people and cultures and elements within your own society, and they get that grievance attitude going, and then that just makes you very very open to any ideology that's going to make you feel like you can get out of that. And that's where they hook you in, for sure.
But that's not the communist part. That's just the tool that they're using to get to what they want down the road. Sure. The plans that they have put in place are crazy and wild and very esoteric, and it all goes but that's how they're like the economy. So when Marx started it, he was like, okay, everybody's affected by this economic system. So that was the tool that he used to get everyone on his side so that he can implement the crazy plan that they have. Then they had to switch it to, well, no, as capitalism grew and everybody started doing better, they didn't have a lot of grievances. They had to switch it to cultural stuff. You see what I'm saying? Sure. So they will constantly switch the tool because they're trying to get to this special place that they need everyone to agree with them for it to happen. So for the utopia to happen, they have to have every single person on the planet in line like a beehive, Yeah,
the hive mindset. Couldn't agree more. 06 Chevy guy says, Gary, do you think that when Iran is looked after, that North Korea is next on the board? No, I don't think North Korea is next on the board, for a couple of reasons. They don't have the resources that Iran has. The other problem is look, they're deeply entrenched on the northern border of South Korea, and they are it's a much harder problem to solve because no matter
They
what
have
we did,
nuclear weapons too.
they have nuclear weapons, which I don't think. Look, they can't hurt us, but what they can do just with, I mean, they have millions and millions of conventional weapons on the DMZ. And look, there's plenty of estimates. You can Google it. Like if we struck, even if we took out most of the regime within, let's say we hit them with a nuclear weapon right in Pyongyang, there's going to be millions of South Koreans that are going to end up being killed. So that is the thing that deters us from taking action in.
And those people are in a cult. So if you take out that leader, they're going to lose their minds and they're going to like be radicalized against. Taking the leader out isn't going to make these people be super happy and they'll join our side. These people are like brainwashed in a cult. So
Yeah, they've been convinced that America and South Korea are the absolute most evil. They have no way to look at media from outside of North Korea. So they believe what they believe. And you're right. You know, I think ultimately you're going to have to address North Korea through diplomacy. And I think that's going to take a really long time. But I do think that the leadership, as it changes from Kim Jong-un to someone else, I think these people are going to become much more, ultimately, they're going to see the poverty that's going on in their country. And I think they're going to be, over time, it's going to take a long time, but they're going to be more open to, you know, opening up the country to trade to the West. Look, people are starving. They have, economically, they're in dire straits. They can't sustain what they're doing for sure. So I think it's just a matter of time for dealing with North Korea. We got a couple other super chats I want to address. Dr. Altoy says, join the party late. Have you discussed the anti-American clowns Pierce Morgan has had on lately? Cenk, Anna K, Dave Smith. They've been espousing views no better than the Iranian mullahs. Pathetic. I saw a couple of clips from Pierce Morgan. Look, Pierce Morgan is he's a leftist. He's anti-American, and sometimes he has
he's anti-British too. He
Yeah,
doesn't
like-
care that his country's being destroyed by. So yeah,
he has moments of clarity that get kind of sent around circuit. Like, I mean, we all liked how he kind of held Candace Owens to task. And again, he'll have good takes sometimes, but 95% of them are utter trash. I mean, just leftist crazy talking points. And just like Megan said, he's watching his country be destroyed and saying nothing about it. And
Cenk
defending.
and Anna K are leftists. I don't care what they say. They never say anything
Oh,
that
yeah.
I agree with anyway. And then Dave Smith is a libertarian.
He's a libertarian leftist, I would say. Like he still holds on to a lot of ideology that I don't consider
A
libertarian.
left-leaning libertarian.
Yeah.
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 So
Due
none
to
of those
Bible-
people are going to be have the same thoughts that we have at all. Like they have completely different worldviews. So
Yeah, no, agree. Due to Bible prophecy, Iran is going to survive and be aggressive with Russia towards Israel. I pray for our troops.
Russia and Israel get along pretty well. I don't see why that would
Yeah.
be a problem.
Well, the thing is look, I mean, nobody, who knows? Look, I believe in the end times. I believe in Revelation. We just don't know when that's going to take place. That may be something that's going to happen 5 years from now, next week, or 100 years from now. So the world politics could completely change by then.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe this is the beginning of that, and we have somebody else that comes to power that maybe starts off great. I don't know. We have no idea what's going on.
There are a lot of Russians that live in Israel that are Jews that are Russian.
Yeah.
Um,
No, you were absolutely correct. A lot of Russian Jews that live in Russia too.
Yep.
So there's that.
They actually get along with Israel very, very well.
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing, is going back to what you and I were talking about, like Russia should be an ally. We have driven Russia away and driven them into the arms of Iran and China out of survival mode. Like that's what we did. We're creating this axis of
they
evil.
have to have an economy. Like if you, so the thing is like one of the things I like to show on my videos is that we have such a comical view of other countries and their people and stuff. So I like to show like point of view walking videos sometimes, and I did that with my first Iran video, I think, or maybe it was the second one, I can't remember, because there's this idea that women there have to wear the hijabs. Well, they really don't, because they changed the law a couple years ago to where it was only allowed to be enforced locally, and the moral police couldn't do it anymore because there was all this outrage about an incident that happened there. And so if you can go on YouTube and you can pull up point of view walking videos in Iran, and the women there are, some of them will wear them and like just the scarf, and then you'll see some women wearing the burqa because they're more of a extremist religious sect.
Fundamental.
But there are tons and tons of women like wearing goth makeup, no hair covering, jewelry. They're hanging out with their friends, smoking on the street. Like, you know what I mean? So we have this completely comical. So, and you can do that in Russia too. So you go to Russia, you can do point of view walking videos. The people there, they look just like us. They're super happy. The streets are clean. They're eating outside in restaurants. You know what I mean? So it's we develop like these weird narratives that are put into our heads about other countries that are sometimes not necessarily true all the way, or like just partially true, or, you know, maybe true for some people because some women in Iran are very oppressed because their family belongs to those really religious sects. So they're going to be, you know, having to wear the burqa, and their husbands and fathers are probably pretty aggressive and rough with them and whatever else is going on. So of course there's like that also going on, right? But that's also going on in every other Arab country, not just Iran. So are we going to invade every Arab country that has that going on? You know, some of them are our allies. So
No, it's the ones with nuclear weapons that threaten to kill us. That's the ones.
right.
Like, I don't think we have any.
But let's say that, and not that we're going there to save all the women from
Sure.
the whatever.
Sure.
So.
Well, I think people use that, including myself, use that to point out the hypocrisy. Like, we have to save these women. That's one of the big messages on the left when it's convenient for them.
Yeah,
it is
well,
a non sequitur when it comes to this, but it's you can't bitch about a school being shot or hit, you know, collateral damage, when we don't know if it was ours, Israel's, or Iran's, but yet you are not upset about and there was a lot of people on the left saying that it was all fake, all these protesters being killed. It wasn't all fake, and I think that's.
Well, how could they know that?
They
You
don't.
can't know stuff like that.
But
So you would have to be, I mean, it is so hard. I am like super geopolitical. And like you were saying earlier about the two family in the home thing, I'm very masculine for a female. Like, I'm into geopolitics. Okay. Most females are not into that and stuff. So I actually make my boys like do stuff. I make them, you want a sandwich? You need to learn how to do it. And I'll, you know, because that's sort of where the feminization is coming from, is like nobody is letting kids do anything or take any risks, and with boys that's especially important. So but the thing is, like, you can't know for definitive anything that's coming out of Iran, like when it comes to that kind of stuff. I watch this stuff and I can't always figure it out. So whoever's saying that, they're just lying. There's no way they could know stuff like that.
No, nobody's saying that the women are liberated in Iran. I think people are saying that will be one of the benefits if the IRGC is actually removed from Iran, and they actually are allowed to look. Iran was a very Western society before the Ayatollah, and
yeah, they have a lot of weird laws that they made up from the clerical. They have like a clerical rule with all these weird civil laws that come from interpretations of the Islamic texts and stuff.
Yeah. Yep, it is without a doubt. I just saw something interesting. Somebody said something stupid. I just want to point that out.
I lost track of what we were talking about.
That's all right. Oh, lapel mic exploded. No, it didn't. Dumbest theory out there for sure. Dumbest theory on the planet out of all of them. It's the dumbest. Well, I think that's a good place to. I don't know if we covered everything that we wanted to cover. Speaking of which, is there anything else that you want people to know about the situation that's happening here in Iran?
Well, I don't really know what all is happening. I'm just going off what I see. I follow these war channels, so I'm keeping track of all that stuff. But in the fog of war, we don't really know what's going on. So I'm just trying to be on top of it. I made my first Iran video that you were talking about that you were going to play. But then
Oh, you want to
I
play the
also,
beginning of that? That's right. Let's do that. Actually,
yeah.
we'll play the
I made
beginning.
an update, like I made a video last night and I just super zoom edited it. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not going to be perfect, just to give all the updates of everything I read from the war channel for a whole yesterday's worth of war. I read other things. So I'm going to try to keep people updated on it. But
So I got two videos here. The one I was talking about was the Iran conflict updates, days 1 through 4. Is that the one you want me to play, or you want to play the
no,
other?
the one with the narrative is like Iran 1808 to, what is it called?
1908 to 2026. All right, we will play that.
I told
Yeah,
you.
and you should be able to speed it up.
Yeah, I
Too,
will.
probably, because I talk pretty slow.
All right, we'll play the first part of this. Gotcha. 1.5. Let's do it.
The most consequential regime changes of the 20th century didn't happen in 1979, but in 1953. And what if I told you it started not with religion, not with revolution, but with oil? Today we're going to walk through the history of Iran starting in 1908, when oil was discovered, how Britain inserted itself into Iran's economy, and how Iranian nationalism rose in response, and how the CIA and British intelligence ultimately helped overthrow a democratically elected prime minister. Because if you want to understand modern Iran, you have to understand 1953.
Brother's not. Chocolate from a Connecticut method. Pretty awesome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope everyone is doing well. So today's video is all about Iran, and it's going to be in 3 sections. In section 1, I will be going over the history we need to know to get the full picture of what's actually going on today. I have that in a story script. Then in section 2, we will be going over a video on an analysis that is interesting that also backs up the history. And section 3 will be my thoughts and going over some stuff online. So let's do this. In 1908, oil was discovered in southwestern Persia, what we now call Iran. At the time, oil was becoming the most strategic resource in the world. Navies were switching from coal to oil. Industrial economies depended on it. Whoever controlled oil controlled power. The discovery was made by a British-backed venture, and in 1909, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company was formed. By 1914, the British government bought a controlling stake in that company. That means Iranian oil was now directly tied to British state power. A foreign government controlled the most valuable resource inside Iran, and this wasn't just business, it was empire. Iran found itself in the Great Game yet again. What is the Great Game? Let's take a look at that. The Great Game was a rivalry between the 19th century British and Russian empires over influence in Central Asia, primarily in Afghanistan, Persia, and Tibet. The two colonial empires used military interventions and diplomatic negotiations to acquire and redefine territories in Central and South Asia. Russia conquered Turkestan, and Britain expanded and set the borders of British India. By the early 20th century, a line of independent states, tribes, and monarchies from the shore of the Caspian Sea to the eastern Himalayas was made into protectorates and territories of the two empires. Though the Great Game was marked by distress, diplomatic intrigue, and regional wars, it never erupted into full-scale war directly between Russia and British colonial forces. However, the two nations battled in the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856, which affected the Great Game. The Russian and British empires also cooperated numerous times during the Great Game, including many treaties and the Afghan Boundary Commission. Britain feared Russia's southward expansion would threaten India, while Russia
all
feared the
those
expansion of
pictures
British
are from
interests
Iran
to Central Asia. As a
that
result,
I'm
Britain
using.
needed a high priority to
Yeah, Iran is a beautiful country. I mean, it's and the history there. And again, when you start seeing some of the pictures from the 60s and 70s to what it is now, not that I mean, it's still a really nice looking country for the most part, but it was so much better before the late 70s.
protect all approaches to India, while Russia continued its military conquest of Central Asia. Aware of the importance of India to the British, Russian efforts in the region often had an aim of extorting concessions from them in Europe. But after 1901, they had no serious intention of directly attacking India. Russian war plans for India that were proposed but never materialized included the Dumel and Kryulev plans of the Crimean War. Russian and Britain's 19th century rivalry in Asia began with the planned Indian march of Paul and Russian invasions into Iran in 1804 and 1813 and 1826 and 1828, shuffling Persia into a competition between colonial powers. According to one major view, the Great Game started on January 12, 1830, when Lord Ellenborough, the president of the Board of Control for India, tasked Lord Bentinck, the governor general, with establishing a trade route to the Emirate of Bukhara. Britain aimed to create a protectorate in Afghanistan and support the Ottoman Empire, Persian, Khiva, and Bukhara as buffer states against Russian expansion. This would protect India and key British sea trade routes by blocking Russia from gaining a port on the Persian Gulf or in the Indian Ocean. As Russian and British spheres of influence expanded and competed, Russia proposed Afghanistan as the neutral zone. Traditionally, the Great Game came to a close between 1895 and 1907. In September 1895, London and St. Petersburg signed the Palmyra Boundary Commission Protocols when the border between Afghanistan and the Russian Empire was defined using diplomatic methods. In August 1907, the Anglo-Russian Convention created an alliance between Britain and Russia and formally delineated control of Afghanistan, Persia, and Tibet. The phrase "the Great Game" was used well before the 19th century and was associated with games of risks, such as cards and dice. The French equivalent dates back to at least 1585 and associated with means of risk and chance and deception. The term Great Game was coined in 1840 by a British intelligence officer, Captain Arthur Connolly. Rudyard Kipling's 1901 novel Kim popularized the term, increasing its association with great power rivalry. It became even more popular after the 1979 advent of the Soviet-Afghan War. So I will leave this linked below and you can read more about the Great Game, but essentially what it is when rivalry powers compete but not directly at each other. They're making strategy and they're taking risks, and it's all, deception and intrigue. And so that's what the Great Game is. And it still continues today in various ways. In 1919, Britain attempted to formalize control through the Anglo-Persian Agreement, essentially turning Iran into a British protectorate in everything but name. Iranians rejected it, but even without formal colonization, Britain had enormous leverage, especially over oil revenues. The profits flowing to Iran were minimal compared to what Britain made. Refining happened in Abadan, but control and pricing stayed in British hands. Over time, resentment grew, because this wasn't just economics, it was sovereignty. Fast forward to the 1940s, World War II ends. Anti-colonial movements are rising across the globe. Countries are demanding control over their own resources. In Iran, that energy coalesces around one man, Mohammad Mossadegh. In 1951, Mossadegh becomes prime minister, and almost immediately he does the unthinkable. He nationalizes the British Oil Company, now called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. He creates the National Iranian Oil Company, and the message was simple: Iran's oil belongs to Iran. Britain was furious. They imposed a global embargo on Iranian oil. They blocked exports. They froze assets. They threatened legal action worldwide against anyone who bought Iranian oil. Iran's economy suffered severely, but Mossadegh didn't back down. Now here's where the Cold War context becomes important. Britain begins framing Mossadegh not just as a nationalist, but as a potential communist threat, and that framing is what brings in the United States. In 1953, the CIA and the British intelligence, MI6, launch a covert operation. The CIA codename, Operation Ajax. The goal? Remove Mossadegh from power. How did they do it? They funded anti-Mossadegh propaganda. They bribed politicians and military officers. They organized protests and counter-protests. They manipulated media narratives. After an initial failed attempt, the coup succeeded in August 1953. Mossadegh was arrested. He was tried for treason, and he spends the rest of his life under house arrest. A democratically elected prime minister removed through foreign intervention. After the coup, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah, is restored to power, this time with expanded authority. He becomes a close ally to the United States. Iran becomes strategically aligned with the West, but internally, political dissent is crushed. Now, technically, the Shah was an authoritarian, and I will explain that. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's authoritarian regime was characterized by centralized power, political oppression, and suppression of dissent, particularly after the 1953 coup that reinstated him with the U.S. and British support. Following the overthrow of Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, the Shah systematically eliminated political opposition, banned independent parties, and imposed strict censorship. Hey guys, so it's that time where I need to ask you to subscribe to.
So if you will, I don't know how much of that you want us to show, but if you will, just kind of, we have you here, just kind of summarize what people need to know about where all this started. I don't have your audio.
So the Shah gets put into place after they take out Mossadegh, right? And Mossadegh was a democratically elected prime minister. And so they take him out, they put the Shah in. The Shah was actually authoritarian and was extremely brutal. He tortured people, he took it down to like a one-party system. He was technically an authoritarian and was really controlling over everybody and everything. So that's what caused the tensions to rise within the country and caused the revolution, which then created a power vacuum for the regime that we have in there today. So that's basically the story.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And so I find it kind of odd that they want to bring back that same guy because he was an authoritarian to begin with.
Yeah. When you say they want to bring him back, who you mean the people of Iran?
No, I mean, well, there probably are some people in Iran's a huge country. There's probably some people there that want him back. And but there was talk, like I saw people talking like on in governments and stuff saying that they were going to have him in as an intermediary or something, possibly. But then that was shifted into now they're just hoping that people in the government want to step up and will work with America like Venezuela did, but then they all keep dying. So Donald Trump said something weird like yesterday. He was like, well, all the people I had thought of in mind, they're dead now, and then the people after that, they're dead too. So I was like, what does that mean? Like, so it's just, yeah, it's all pretty crazy. But that guy was super authoritarian, the Shah. So
Yeah.
and then that's pretty much where my narrative ends, is once the regime we have now gets into power. And then in that video, I play an analysis from a person that does political analysis and then just talk about other things. But yeah.
Yep. Betsy BB. Deep state, yes, in the 70s, the Shah was working with the CIA, but don't kid yourself, the communists were working with the radical Islamists. Yeah, there's a lot of things going wild there. I just want to make sure we covered all the super chats. Any last things that you want to leave everybody with, other than make sure you guys go follow the Eclectic Journalist? Like I said, a lot of information she puts out. It's very well researched. You guys go check that out for sure. What else you got, Megan?
That's it. I mean, I just yeah, if anybody wants to subscribe to my channel, I could really use subscribers. You can't get any kind of like all this work that goes into your YouTube channel. You can't really get any kind of payment for it until you've reached like a certain amount
Yeah, 1,000
behind the scenes and stuff. So yeah, so many watch hours, so many subscribers and stuff like that. But I put a lot of work into them. Some of them have like chalkboards, so I use chalkboards on the virtual chalkboards on the computer screen that you see. None of them are me on camera because I haven't really figured all that out yet very well. But I did add a picture. As you guys saw, my recent videos now have a still image of me on the screen. But yeah, it's just very informative, a lot of information. It's super interesting. So anyway, I just love as many followers as I can get. And I also have an X account where I communicate. Oh, and I'm working on putting together a Candace Owens and Erica Kirk lies. So it's sort of going to be how nasty Candace Owens is. And I'm going to do it like in my style where I bounce off things that are out there that we can go off of. And then I'm going to, so I'm going to start with her, and then I'm going to slowly move into all the downstreaming propaganda and lies about Erica Kirk and stuff like that, and try to fight that narrative going on. And so that's going to be pretty interesting, but it's like a lot of work, like to
I
do
know. I'm well aware.
So,
Well, listen, folks, we really appreciate you tuning in. Megan, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest. We appreciate you.
Thank you for
go give
having
her
me.
a follow. Get her over 1,000 subscribers.
Bye,
If you're
everybody.
watching, go give her a follow. And we will talk to you soon. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready, and we'll see you soon.